Assalamu alaikum, shalom aleichem. I originally began learning the biblical languages because I had this goal as a young believer that, in an ideal world, I would somehow memorize all of the Bible, however crazy that sounds now, or at least memorize all of the Psalms of David. And I noticed in Psalm 119, the longest chapter in the Bible, that there are these weird characters, these weird symbols, 22 of them, every few paragraphs in that chapter, Psalm 119. And came to find out that those characters are the letters of the Hebrew alphabet. So I said to myself, if the letters of the Hebrew alphabet are even in English translations, they must have some significance, especially like the way it's embedded in the breaks of chapter 119 of the book of Psalms. What is the reason for that? So I investigated and got more and more interested. Today maybe I'll give you one short example of why it is so important to study the biblical languages. Everybody knows that there are differences between translations. There are many translations of the Bible. And like any language, when you translate, something's going to be lost. The larger the literary work is, the more that's going to be lost. So some translations are different from other translations in that some translations focus more on the narrative, the basic story. Other types of translations try to be more faithful word to word of the original language, but in doing so lose a little bit of the flow of the story or narrative in English. And other translations may try to find a balance between the two. And always you're going to lose like the rhyme and the rhythm of the original language because, for example, the book of Psalms is full of rhyming. In the original language, these are like songs. That's why they're called Psalms. And idioms as well get lost. If you were to translate beat around the bush to another language, if you translate that literally, it's not going to mean the same thing as it means in English. And if you make a pun using the English idiom beat around the bush and make it rhyme with some other thing as a pun in English, even if you translate what we mean by beat around the bush, rather than translating it literally, then you're going to lose the rhyme of it, and you'll likely lose the pun, the point of the joke to begin with. So that's part of the challenge of translations and why it's important to anybody who values the Bible, believes in God, and believes that his revelation to mankind is preserved in the Bible, why they should study the original languages. It doesn't even mean you have to study it to fluency, but just becoming familiar with it can really open your eyes to a lot of things, especially to some particularly controversial doctrinal or theological topics, some of which would be quite eye-opening. We are 3 minutes and 30 seconds in. Okay, let's see how quickly I can give you an example. Lord. So, at least in English, colloquial English, among believers, among Christians, the term Lord is kind of assumed to refer to God. But you only have to go back to Shakespeare to realize that Lord is a term that can also refer to humans. How is this relevant to theological controversies? Well, if you open up your translations, you'll notice that sometimes, particularly in the Old Testament, sometimes the word Lord is in all capital letters, sometimes it's in all lowercase letters, and sometimes it's got a capital letter in the first letter, but the rest is lowercase. There's a reason for this. When it's in all capital letters, it's attempting to translate the holy four-letter name of God. That doesn't really mean Lord, but that's how they translate it because of tradition. When it is not in all capital letters, it could be the word Adon, Adonai, and if it's an Aramaic part of the Bible, it could be Mar. It could also be Rav, depending on what era of the Hebrew text you're dealing with. Not sure if that ever is actually used in biblical Hebrew, but I think it may be. especially like if you're looking at Old Hebrew translations of the New Testament. But how is this relevant to theological controversies? Well, especially when you consider that in the New Testament, these distinctions, the three distinctions I just mentioned, between the capital, all capital letters, all lowercase letters, and the capital first letter and the rest lowercase, those distinctions don't exist in the original Greek of the New Testament. So passages that could be interpreted as referring to God might be referring to men or to some angel, or it just may be vague. Perhaps one interpretation makes more sense than another contextually, but the argument for deity and certain such passages simply can't be made on the grounds of the word Lord itself. So let's recap the terms Lord in Hebrew and Aramaic. You have the four-letter name of God, sometimes called the Tetragrammaton, sometimes translated as Jehovah, but more commonly translated with Lord in all capital letters. That name specifically refers to God. It can also appear in the names of humans, but even when it's in the name of a human, it's in reference to God. And the other name, not really name, title, that's translated as Lord is Adon. Adon very often refers to human beings, but it could also refer to the Creator. So this word Adon in and of itself does not mean divinity. Another word that's translated as Lord is Adonai, and that more likely than not will refer to God, but it could also be the plural possessive form of Lord in general. So it could as well refer to plural human masters. And then you have the term Mar in Aramaic, and that as well can refer to a Lord or like a Sir. And as we said in the New Testament, these distinctions aren't made. Keep that in mind when interpreting the Bible and get to studying the Holy Language. If you believe it's the Word of God, or at least believe that it has great philosophical and historical significance, and you allow it to impact your worldview and your beliefs, it's worth investing a little time to at least familiarize yourself with the original languages of the Bible. Over and out. Yalla bye.